The rain poured heavily against the glass windows of Sterling Enterprises, the most powerful corporate tower in the city, when Adrian Cole, once a man of quiet dignity, now reduced to a janitor, dragged his mop across the polished marble floor. He was used to the stares, the mocking whispers of the younger executives who rushed past him in their designer suits, and the pitying glances of those who knew his story. Once, Adrian had dreamed of building something of his own, but after his wife's passing and the crushing weight of medical bills, he had lost everything. Except his daughter. To keep little Ivy clothed, fed, and safe, he had taken the only job he could find, cleaning the empire of someone who lived the life he once wished he could give her. And that someone was Veronica Sterling, the CEO herself, a woman known for her cold poise, her dazzling beauty, and her ruthless ambition. She was untouchable, unshakable, and unreachable. At least that's what the world believed. Until the day she looked down from her glass office and whispered words no one could have imagined. "Pretend you love me for 7 minutes." But why? Why him of all people? The janitor, the single dad, the man in worn shoes and tired eyes. And what happened in those 7 minutes stunned everyone. If you believe in kindness, redemption, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Together, we can spread stories that remind the world that compassion still matters. Adrian had been invisible for months, slipping in and out of boardrooms at night, making sure the pristine empire gleamed by dawn. He never complained, though his back ached and his hands cracked from chemicals. Every penny went to Ivy, her school books, her medicine when her asthma flared, the occasional ice cream cone that reminded her she was still a child despite the weight she carried. What Adrian didn't know was that someone had been watching him quietly from the top floor. Veronica Sterling, despite her steely reputation, often found her gaze drifting to the man with the mop. She told herself it was curiosity. Why did he bow his head even when insulted, yet smile when his phone lit up with his daughter's call? Why did he work with such quiet pride when everyone else treated the task as invisible? But deep down, she envied him. For though she had money, power, and prestige, she had no one who would smile at her simply for being there. Her parents had raised her to be a Sterling first and a human second. Love was a foreign language. The day everything changed began with a board meeting. Investors from Europe had flown in, expecting to see a dazzling CEO with charm, charisma, and heart. Instead, Veronica felt their judgment like knives. "She's brilliant, but she's cold," she overheard one whisper. "A woman like that doesn't understand people. She understands numbers." It was then that a desperate thought struck her. If she could show vulnerability, softness, love, maybe they'd trust her vision not just as a leader but as someone human. And then she saw him. Adrian pushing his mop near the conference hall. Strong shoulders, worn hands, a face lined with grief and determination. Not handsome in the polished sense, but undeniably real. Before she could stop herself, she stepped out of the meeting, heels clicking, and stopped before him. Her voice, usually sharp as glass, trembled as she said words that stunned him. "Pretend you love me for 7 minutes." Adrian froze, mop dripping water onto the marble. For a moment, he thought it was a cruel joke, the CEO asking him to pretend love. But then he saw her eyes, fierce yet fragile, a plea hidden in their steel. He realized this wasn't arrogance. This was desperation. She pulled him into the boardroom, and in an instant, the atmosphere shifted. Gasps echoed as the janitor walked beside the CEO, his rough uniform contrasting against her flawless suit. Veronica slipped her hand into his and smiled, not the rehearsed corporate smile, but something trembling, almost breaking. "This," she said softly to the stunned investors, "is what grounds me. This is what love looks like when power is stripped away. I can lead this company with brilliance, but I can also lead with heart." For 7 minutes, Adrian played a role he never thought he'd be cast in. He stood by her side as if he belonged there, his eyes steady, his hand protective. And though he told himself it was pretend, something about the way she leaned toward him, about the relief in her posture, stirred something long buried inside him. When the meeting ended, the investors nodded, impressed by the humanity they had never seen in her. Veronica let go of his hand, her mask slipping back into place. But for Adrian, those 7 minutes felt like a lifetime of possibilities condensed into a fragile moment. The days after were different. Veronica avoided speaking of it, but she lingered near the cleaning staff more often than before. Sometimes she'd ask about his daughter. Sometimes she'd just watch him mop, As if the rhythmic strokes steadied her racing mind, Adrian tried to shake it off. This was dangerous territory. A janitor did not belong in the orbit of a CEO, but the memory of her trembling hand and his refused to fade. One night, as the city glowed outside her office, Veronica called him in. "Why didn't you laugh at me?" she asked quietly. Adrian, caught off guard, replied, "Because you didn't need laughter. You needed someone to see you." Her breath hitched, as if no one had ever given her such a simple truth. For the first time, she confessed. She had everything but love. She had power but no home, and in those 7 minutes with him, she felt something real. Their bond grew in secret. A CEO and a janitor bound not by wealth or status, but by wounds and longings. Adrian shared stories of Ivy, her bravery with asthma attacks, her dream of being an artist. Veronica found herself smiling, genuinely, at sketches he brought in to show her. And Adrian began to see that beneath the icy exterior was a woman who had been taught never to cry, never to trust, never to lean on anyone. But the world wasn't kind. Rumors spread quickly. Whispers of the CEO's scandal with a janitor rippled through the building. Veronica's board pressured her to deny everything, to cut ties. "Do you want to lose everything over a man with nothing?" they sneered. Adrian overheard, his pride ached. But his heart broke more at the thought of being the reason she lost what she had fought her whole life for. That night, he wrote a resignation letter. When he handed it to her, Veronica's hands shook. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. He smiled softly, though it hurt. "Because you deserve the world, not its pity. And Ivy deserves a father who doesn't drag others down." But Veronica didn't let him go. Instead, she took him by the hand, just as she had that day, and walked into the next board meeting. In front of every investor, every executive, she declared, "You asked me to lead with heart. Well, here it is. This man may not wear a suit, but he's the strongest person I've ever met. He's taught me more about love, humility, and courage than this empire ever did. If you cannot accept him, then you cannot accept me." Silence. Then, one by one, hands clapped, not all, but enough. For the first time in years, Veronica Sterling defied the world not for profit, but for love. 2 months later, Adrian's life had changed, not with riches or grand promises, but with something he never thought he'd have again: hope. Veronica, once untouchable, now joined him and Ivy in the park on weekends, laughing as Ivy painted her nails with glitter polish. The world still whispered, but they didn't care, because 7 minutes of pretend had given birth to a forever they never expected. And every time Adrian looked at her, he remembered the rain that night, the trembling hand that reached for him, and the truth he had spoken: sometimes all a person needs is not laughter, not pity, but someone willing to truly see them. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to Kindness Journal for more stories of hope, love, and second chances. Special request: comment below. Would you have pretended for those 7 minutes if someone asked you in their most vulnerable moment?